If you do not forgive yourself, you will not be able to trust yourself. Self-forgiveness is a requirement for self-trust. Because if you are a prisoner to your regret, or a prisoner to whatever made-up prison you've made in your mind, you will never be able to trust yourself because you are what? A prisoner. In order for you to even start the journey of learning to trust yourself and not wanting the counsel of others and not wanting other people's opinions to rule your life and for you to not care what people think, you need to learn self-trust. But you can't do any of that if you don't forgive yourself. I've actually learned that it's easier for people to forgive others than it is for them to forgive themselves, because they hold themselves hostage and they withhold forgiveness from themselves. So your mind can be your best or your worst companion, because the minute you make yourself a prison in your mind, then your mind has betrayed you, right? If you cannot live through life without the background noise of other people's opinions, if you always want other people's advice, you want to know if they approve, you want their validation, you are constantly seeking and chasing external validation, it's because you don't trust yourself. You cannot trust yourself if you operate from shame. You will never trust yourself if you operate from shame. Because you shame yourself. You shame the things that you did when you were younger. You shame yourself for things that you didn't even know any better then. Even if you knew, you still shame yourself. Why can't you let it go? You forgive people for doing things to you even though they knew what they were doing, but you cannot forgive yourself for the same? Why? Why are you so lenient on others and not on yourself? This is another thing, my girl. All of the, the intuition and the discernment and everything we talk about these days, right? To be aware of other people, to see other people clearly. You are not able to see other people clearly if you cannot see yourself clearly. You will not be able to see yourself clearly if you are a prisoner. Okay, a prisoner does not self-reflect. They're in a prison. Things are just happening to them. The system is happening to them. If the warden comes in and says, get up, the prisoner has to do whatever the warden says. The prisoner is not free. They are not free to do anything. If the warden says, start thinking, the prisoner can start thinking. If the warden says, don't think, do this, don't do that, the prisoner has to do that because the warden is law. And you have made regret to be your warden. You have made shame to be your warden, and you are its prisoner. All of the intuition in the world is nothing without self-trust. Because your gut can tell you something, your intuition can tell you something. It means nothing if you don't trust yourself. Because how will you act on it if you don't trust that? You won't act on it. You will doubt yourself. You say, maybe I'm tripping, maybe I'm taking things too deep. You will minimize your own feelings because you are a prisoner. You will minimize your own feelings because you are a prisoner. In order for you to build self-trust, you need to learn to practice radical compassion for yourself and radical forgiveness for yourself. Give yourself the same grace that you have extended to others and stop self-sacrificing. And when it comes to the topic of discernment, right? Being able to see through people, being able to see people's intentions before they even are overt. In order to be able to see people so clearly, to be aware of other people, to pick up on the little behaviors, because people always give themselves away. You will not be able to do that if you cannot see yourself, if you cannot see yourself clearly. The only way you can ever see another human clearly is if you can see yourself clearly. So discernment means nothing without self-trust. How could you ever even get to a point where you are able to see yourself clearly if you do not trust yourself? Because how will you trust what you see? How do you know that that is who you are? How will you know? How will you know if you find yourself in a cycle that is not that different, right? How will you know when you are repeating toxic patterns if you cannot trust yourself, if you cannot see yourself clearly? How will you know? How will you know when you are being taken advantage of if you don't even know how you are when you are not being taken advantage of? How will you know when you are being mistreated when you don't even know what you are like when you are being treated good? How will you know? You know? How will you ever know yourself? You will remain a stranger to yourself. I will always say this to you, my girls. There's only one person you're spending the rest of your life with. Even if you decide to get married, even if you decide to have kids, even if you're surrounded by family and friends, essentially you are spending the rest of your life with yourself. That's who you got for the rest of your life. Don't run away from the one person that you've got for the rest of your life. Because, you know, same as the prisoner analogy, right? If you are a prisoner, you know how prisoners usually have, you know, a picture of a window, a picture of the outside world, to sort of make themselves feel like they are still on the outside even though they are in a prison. That is what you will do to yourself. You will build a life of illusions, a life of freedom, but it's not really freedom, it's a facade, right? It's a picture of a window and not an actual window. Learn to forgive yourself. That is the only way you can trust yourself. And that is the only way you can live a life that is not a lie.